You guys don't want a bigger room?
We love you. We love you. We like being close. We like being close.
Okay, good. As you know, we've had a tremendous amount of activity here in the last 24 hours, really focused on the American worker. Buy America and Hire America is at the core of the president's plan to create an economy that works for everyone. And I think by every indication, you've seen that focus in the past 24 and 36 hours. Before we begin going through the event of today, I want to start off with a quick rundown of all that the president and his administration have done with just one official working day under our belts. I don't know about everyone else, but I think it's been a pretty impressive first and second full days here. President Trump's meetings yesterday with top business and union leaders, including frontline union workers, went very well, and I think was a signal to every American worker that jobs and the economy are truly the president's top priority. A few of the participants noted afterwards in each one of these groups that we meet with that this was the first time, in some cases ever, that they've been reached out to. In almost every case, the first time they were invited into the Oval Office. And I really think that when you look at the level of concern and interest that he has in the American worker, it's been clearly on display in the last 24, 36 hours. In addition to these productive meetings, the president also took major steps towards fulfilling some of his biggest campaign promises to the American people. He ushered in a new era of U.S. trade policy by withdrawing from the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement and restored respect for taxpayers by instituting a hiring freeze on the executive branch. He also reaffirmed his commitment to life by reestablishing the Mexico City policy. And the president ended his day yesterday with a bipartisan, bicameral meeting of congressional leaders where he made it clear that he expects there to be no delay in getting an agenda through Congress and action out of Washington. This morning, the president began his day with a breakfast listening to key automobile executives. They spoke about the importance of increasing manufacturing capabilities specific to the automotive industry. They touched on the need for regulatory reform and a modernized safety standards, which will advance the industry leading in technology and job creation here in the United States. I think you've been briefed on the attendees, but real quickly, Mary Barra is the head of General Motors, was here. Former Governor Matt Blunt, the president of the American Automotive Policy Council, Mark Fields of Ford, Craig Gilden of General Motors, Roger Carr of Fiat Chrysler, Sergio Marchionne of Fiat Chrysler, Zio Jockey, the head of government affairs for Ford, and then from the administration, Jared Kushner was on hand, Reince Priebus, Steve Bannon, Stephen Miller, Gary Cohn, and Hope Hicks. Then the president signed a series of executive actions that will move our country towards energy independence, but more importantly, really continue to get Americans back to work. The president started by signing a memorandum to fulfilling a major promise to secure swift approval for the Keystone Pipeline. The memorandum invites TransCanada to resubmit their proposal and directs agencies to approve it without delay. There's an energy revolution that's going to happen in this country, and in spite of the bureaucratic and political barriers that have been in place in the past, we're ready to move forward. Oil and gas production is up significantly in the last decade, and our imports have been cut in half. The president's actions today will create tens of thousands of new jobs for the American workers and move us greater towards energy independence, while at the same time ensuring that we keep the environment as a top priority. The president also signed a memorandum regarding the Dakota Access Pipeline. This memorandum directs agencies to expedite reviews and approvals for the remaining portions of this pipeline, which the previous administration held up for political reasons. The $3.8 billion pipeline, already almost 90% complete, will carry over 500,000 barrels a day of crude oil from areas in North Dakota to oil markets in the U.S. And in both of these areas, as the president remarked this morning, he's going to ensure that we continue to negotiate in both areas to provide the best deal for the American taxpayer. The president signed an executive order establishing a framework for expediting environmental reviews for high-priority infrastructure projects. Delays and other inefficiencies in the environmental review and permitting process are severely impeding critically important projects that will help us remodernize and rebuild our nation's infrastructure. This order will help put an end to the crippling delays caused by bureaucratic red tape. The president also signed a memorandum requiring the Commerce Secretary to submit a report recommending how best to streamline manufacturing permitting. The president has been hearing from manufacturers that excessive regulation are driving them out of the U.S. As part of his commitment to making America work again, the President has directed the Commerce Secretary to reach out to manufacturers and the public to identify regulations that are hurting them from moving forward. The President also signed a memorandum directing the Commerce Secretary to lead a study looking into building the Keystone and Dakota Access pipelines, as well as any other future pipeline with U.S.-made steel and pipe and accessories. This is the first step in the President really delivering on his campaign promise to put American steel back at the backbone of the U.S. economy. The U.S. has lost nearly one-third of its manufacturing base since 1997, even though the country's population has increased by 50 million people. We're going to rebuild our infrastructure, and we're going to do it with American workers and with American resources. As many of you recall, the Buy American theme was a major part of the President's inaugural address. This is clearly an immediate action and an extension of that promise that he made to the American people last Friday. We sorely need these infrastructure jobs. According to the National Association of Manufacturers, without improvements to our transportation systems, quote, the United States will lose more than 2.5 million jobs by 2025. Creating jobs and boosting wages is the President's top priority, and has been made very clear over the past 36 hours. This is an area where he's taking immediate action. At 1 o'clock, President was speaking with Indian Prime Minister Modi. We'll have a readout as soon as that's available. If we can get it to you during the briefing, we will. This afternoon, the President will hold a bipartisan meeting with key Senate leadership, including the Majority Leader, the Minority Leader, the Majority Whip, and the Minority Whip, to discuss his nomination for Associate Justice of the United States Supreme Court. As he noted earlier today, he intends to have a decision by the end of the week and an announcement early next week. The President has made it incredibly clear that he will appoint justices who protect our liberty and hold the highest regards for the Constitution. He continues to carefully consider potential future justices based on their commitment to upholding these principles. This meeting is an important opportunity for the President to consult with Senate leaders from both sides of the aisle on his potential choices for the bench. As you may have heard, Speaker Ryan extended an invitation to the President to address a joint session of Congress on February 28th. I'm pleased to inform you that the President has accepted that invitation, and he looks forward to sharing his plans for moving the country forward. I have a feeling by the time we get to February 28th, we will have a lot to talk about. It was great to see the nominations of Dr. Carson, Secretary Chao, Mr. Ross, and Governor Haley were advanced out of committee today. Just as a reminder, by the end of the first week of President Obama's first week in office, he had 12. So the Senate's got a little catching up to do, and I hope the Senate Democrats do their job and help us catch up to that number. One quick follow-up on our storm relief efforts that have plagued the Southeast. White House staff is in touch with officials in the states and will continue to provide assistance to the recovery. A FEMA team is on the ground in Atlanta, Georgia, to support response and recovery activities. FEMA liaison officers have been deployed to emergency support centers in both Mississippi and Georgia for response activities.